Hello everyone, and welcome again to the book of Revelation is so simple. Today we're into chapter 8. We're going to start off talking about the 7 plague angels, and it'll probably be a two-parter because there's a lot of information here. And again, we're building on the timeline. And the day on the timeline that we're on is the day of the Lord. We're on like this kind of the second half, at the beginning of the destruction of the whore of Babylon. The first part was the resurrection of God's people, and the second part is going to be about the destruction of the whore of Babylon on the same day. They both occur on the same day. We'll do a quick brush up with a couple of verses. We'll start with Revelation 8:1. When the Lamb broke the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for what seemed like half an hour. Again, I said before, I think it was in Revelation 6 when we were teaching, at the end of that this is when the 7th seal is opened. The first 6 seals were in, of course, Revelation chapter 6. So, isn't that funny? 6 and 6 correlation. Anyway, the 7th seal was opened, and that was 2,000 years ago, after Jesus died on the cross and before the destruction of Jerusalem, because everything that was under the seals was the same thing that was on the outside of the scroll, and most of it had to do with the destruction of Jerusalem up until up until what was under the 6th seal. But he was still, at that point, John still was in heaven at the time with Jesus, with God the Father, with all the angels in heaven, and and he was watching them, and he's still there right now. If you want a point time of where he's at while he's writing, while he's seeing these things, he's seeing this vision of. Actually, he saw right there the Lamb breaking the 7th seal, and that there was silence in heaven, what seemed like in half an hour. That was a right then moment. But then in verse 2, then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and they were given 7 shofars. He's seeing a vision now, a vision of what's to come. And so that's a vision that was far off in his future, which is also in our future, because it is the destruction of the whore of Babylon. So like I said, he sees all these different visions, and we have to assemble them, put them on a timeline for it to make sense of what's in our future and what was in his future, which all of it was in his future, but some of it was in our past, like the destruction and everything that had to do with the destruction of Jerusalem. So again, we're going to now jump to verse 11. Like I said, we're in the second part. We're showing on your timeline the day of the Lord. The first part was him taking up his people to meet the Lord in the air on the day of the Lord. And the other thing that happens is the destruction of the whore of Babylon. In the verse that gives us that hint is the 2 witnesses in 11:11 being taken up. And it says in verse 12, then the 2, that's all of God's people, those of the Old Covenant and New Covenant, the 2 witnesses, heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, come up here. And they went up into heaven in a cloud, whoop, just like the other verses this told us, while their enemies watched them. Verse 13, chapter 11, verse 13. In that hour, there was a great earthquake, and a tenth of the city, that's Jerusalem, collapsed. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the rest were all struck and gave glory to God in heaven. All right. So the reason they give glory to God in heaven, those 7,000, is in the future. There are going to be still those who don't believe in the Messiah, but they're waiting for it. So also going to be the non-Messianic Jews, and by then they'll know what's going on because the resurrection took place. and they're going to give glory to God when they see this. They're like, "Oh, this is it. We've been taken up. We're back on the earth. A lot of them, and this happens. And they'll know the scripture. Stay by. All right, and sorry about that pause. Revelation 8, verse 2. I had to find the other verse. You're going to go also to Revelation 15 to put your flipping thumb over there on Revelation 15, verses 1. And then I'm going to jump in and show you something in verse 6 as well. So this is why I'm saying that you got a symbol of the verses. Verse 2. Then I saw, now you see another vision, John see another, chapter 8, verse 2. Then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and they were given 7 shofars. Let's stop there. Now hop over to 15, Revelation 15, verse 1. Then I saw another sign, this is a second sign, in heaven, a great and wonderful one, 7 angels with the 7 plagues, that are the final ones, because with them God's fury is finished. Now, with the beginning of them, God's fury begins with them, total. At the end, God's fury will be finished. So God's got some fury coming. And we are not, like I said, in all them other verses we covered the other video, God's fury is not for his people. So his people are gone by this time. We're gone off the earth. We are with him in the holy city, Jerusalem. And again, that's in, I meant to give that verse to, let me jump over to it. Verse 21, Revelation 21. Jump over to Revelation 21. He says, Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had passed away, and the sea was no longer there. Now, sea also represents nations. So that could represent the nations were no longer there because we're all one kingdom under God. Also, I saw, verse 2, 21 verse 2, also I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from heaven from God, prepared like a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband. Now, this occurs right after sometime after the resurrection. After the resurrection, I mean, before what we're looking at right now. That holy city comes with God the Father, with Jesus, with the angels, with everybody in heaven. The whole everything, the city, everything comes, and everyone's going to know what's happening when it begins to happen. Because, mainly another reason, because the dead in Christ shall rise up, along with everyone else that we discussed at the third resurrection. And so all this happens, and the holy city comes, and we are taken up to meet the Lord in the clouds in the air. Is he just hanging around on a cloud? No, I believe he's in this city, because this is a past tense. John, this is later on when we get to it. But John goes, oh, and I saw back there, one of them visions. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem. So you place that right there at that point in between where we're resurrected up to the clouds to heaven, and when it comes back adorned with us, the bride of Christ, that is the point where the holy city, New Jerusalem, comes. He saw it come. And we are ruling and reigning with Christ up in the clouds in the holy city that's going to be above Jerusalem. According to the Old Testament, I wish I would have found that verse for you. It's going to be there. It's going to be a beacon, like a beacon for everyone who wants to come to the Lord from around the globe. They can see the lights of that city. They'll be able to see the light, even on the other side of the globe. They'll be able to see the light and travel and come. And there's going to be ways for them to come. There's going to be roads built for them to come. Children can come by themselves, if such a thing. Nothing is going to happen to them. Young people that haven't accepted Christ, but they didn't make it. I don't know when that age is, but they'll be able to see the lights and come to the city, and nobody, they say a child can walk by himself there. There will be people dare not touch that child, because the Lord's going to rule and reign, and they will fear the Lord, and they better fear their Lord. Okay, now what's about to happen here is these 7 plague angels are coming. John sees them in these couple different spots that we just read, but they're basically these 7 plague angels. They receive in 8 verse 2. Then I saw the 7 plague angels stand before the Lord. Now to stand before God, and this is in the holy city, inside of a temple in the city, the new city Jerusalem, not something that's built on earth. There's no reason to build another sacrificial temple in or on this earth. Jesus in the Old Testament scriptures, when he comes back and walks to Jerusalem downstairs, the old Jerusalem, he's going to glorify the place where he stands. That's what the scripture says. So he does not need to sit. He's not going to sit around. He's not coming to sit around and eat buttercups and be fed ice cream by his 144,000. He's coming to rule and reign. That voice is going to be going out, giving commands, and people are going to be snap, snap, snap. And I have to show you some of that during the millennial reign. We're going to go back when we hit the millennial reign, which is not too far from now. In the next couple of videos, it's going to be Jeremiah 50:51. Well, that's the destruction of Babylon. But then the next days later, events start taking place for the preparation for the kingdom. And we're going to be getting a lot of that from Isaiah 60, chapters 60 through 66. You might want to pre-read that. And it tells a lot about what's going to happen during the millennial reign. So, 8 verse 2, then I saw 7 angels standing before God, and they were given 7 shofars. Another angel came and stood at the altar with a gold incense bowl. Now this angel, I believe, is Christ. And I'll tell you, just remember that. It's Christ. Just trust me. And he was given a large quantity of incense to add to the prayers of all God's people on the gold altar in front of the throne. Now let's stop there, because we got to go back to 15 and show you what happens in between those two scriptures. And you add it in. And I've done this in one of my books, maybe both of them, but you blend. This is where you really got to blend those scriptures together. Because in 15, let's cover a little bit of 15, because we're at that point where they're about to receive, even though we already read it in 15, where we're in the other verses, in 8, we're about to read in 15, where they receive the bowls as well. But it's all one video. It's like watching one movie in 2 cameras. You got one camera covering chapter 8, one camera covering chapter 15. Okay? And if you've ever done any video management at all, you take multiple clips, but you set up multiple cameras for one action scene, and you know how it's supposed to go, so you can take the clips. A movie director takes the clips and starts stacking pieces of them, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, to make the movie from different angles. Jack and Jill talking, switching from their heads. But that's what every movie person does. Where it's the same thing happening here. This is a script. The book of Revelation is a script. It's not a book you read from beginning to end. It's supposed to make sense. It's a script, and you got to put it together. So at chapter 15, verse 1, let's go back to 1 again. Then I saw another sign in heaven, a great and wonderful one, 7 angels with the 7 plagues that are the final ones, because with them God's fury is finished. Again, his fury will be finished at the last plague. Verse 2. I saw what looked like a sea of glass mixed with fire. Those defeating the beast, that's a plural right there. That's a continuation. And we already talked about this with chapter 6, and some about the resurrection, that the sea of glass is all the angels in front of the throne, but now they're mixed with the fire. The fire is, from Revelation chapter 7, the fire is the people that were resurrected. So that's the angels mixed with fire. Those angels came down, took their people. Each of us have an assigned angel, took their person back up to meet the Lord in the air, and we stand with that angel. That angel is going to guide us and tell us what we're going to be doing up there. So, and there's 4 types. You're either going to be hanging out with a lion angel, an ox angel, a human-looking angel, or an eagle angel. And I've known people that've seen eagle angels before, and lion angels. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody seeing an ox angel. And of course, everyone sees human angels, so they say. Anyway, verse 2, those defeating the beast in its image and the number of its name were standing by the sea of glass, holding harps, which God had given them. Verse 3, they were singing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. Great and wonderful are the things you have done, Adonai, God of heaven's armies. Just the true are your ways, kings of the nations. Adonai, who will not fear and glorify your name, because you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you, for your righteous deeds have been revealed. All the nations are coming. Everyone's coming. Nobody's going to miss it. Now here we are in verse 5. This is where we start stacking. After this, John looked, and the sanctuary, that is, the tent of witness. He looked in the sanctuary. Inside was this tent of witness in heaven, and it was opened. And this is where God the Father is, in this tent of witness in heaven, which is, I believe, is in the second heaven in that city, holy city Jerusalem. There's like a tent of witness. And out of the sanctuary came the 7 angels with 7 plagues. Okay, so we stack it. Okay, you start stacking right here. You go to 8, and it says, 8 verse 2, then I saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and they were given 7 shofars. Stop right there. Okay, and then you go and you read after this. Well, you go 5 verse here and 15:5, and then you go 8:2, where they were standing for and given the 7 shofars. Then you go back to chapter 15 verse 6, and out of the sanctuary came the 7 angels with the 7 plagues. They were dressed in clean, bright linen and had gold belts around their chest. Verse 7. One of the 4 living beings gave to... Okay, let's stop here. You stop at 7. You go back to Revelation 8, verse 3. Another angel, this is our angel right here in 7 too. One of the 4 living beings, okay, gave to the 7 angels 7 gold bowls. See, so you go back to 8:3, and that's where you got to put that one before this one before. Another angel came and stood at the altar with a gold incense bowl, and he was given a large quantity of incense to add to the prayers of all God's people. Verse 4, on the gold altar in front of the throne, the smoke of the incense went up with the prayers of God's people from the hand of the angel before God. And then you can jump back over. And that's when you hit 7. One of the 4 living beings, that same angel that's at the altar, which I believe is Christ, gave to the 7 angels 7 gold bowls filled with the fury of God who lives forever ever. Okay, then you stop. You go back, and sorry about the sinus stuff. Then you hit 5. Then the 8 verse 5. Then the angel took the incense bowl, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it down onto the earth. Now this could have been a representation of the other angels throwing their fire down to the earth. and there followed peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Now, before I think the peals of thunder and all that occur, we go back to 15:8. Then the sanctuary was filled with smoke from God's Shekinah, his glory, that is, from his power. And no one could enter the sanctuary until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels had accomplished their purpose. So here's the story coming through. The angels are up there seen in the sanctuary with God the Father. God the Father hands them their 7 trumpets, their 7 shofars. And then they come down from there while the angel down below prepares at the altar. And that angel, of course, is the Son of God, Jesus. And then he hands them their golden bowls. And from there, they come out from there. And then the smoke fills the temple. And God, no one can enter there. No one can enter God the Father. No one can even see him. He closes himself up in that temple because this is his son's millennial reign. Okay? So you got God the Father sits back and he says, okay, it's all yours now. This is your millennial reign. You rule for this 1,000 years. And at the end, no one, 15 verse 8, at the end it says, no one could enter the sanctuary until the 7 plagues of the 7 angels had accomplished their purpose. Now later we're going to find out that the sanctuary is open, but that's after the millennial reign. All right. So hold on one second. Again, a little interruption. Again, in verse 8, on the gold altar before the throne, the smoke of the incense went up with the prayers of God's people from the hand of the angel before God. It's the same verse, same vision, same part of that vision. And the verse 5 happens a little, it's like a future then. Then the angel took the incense bowl, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it down onto the earth. Under his authority, under Jesus' authority, those angels throw their fire down, but they go in succession with each of the trumpets or shofars. And I'll show you this in just a minute, how it's a shofar and then a bowl. Threw it down onto the earth, and there followed peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightnings. And what followed after that is peals of thunder, voices, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Okay? And there's this earthquake at the end is going to be a rocking earthquake. It's a different earthquake than the other one. Now, let's go on to, again, we're going to combine. I'm going to go ahead and finish this because we covered it pretty quick. And I want to tell you now, the trumpets and bowls, get the magic wrench here to hold the page. The trumpets and bowls, there's only 7 plague angels. Okay? The first 4 plague angels out of these 7, now each of the 7 each have now 1 trumpet and 1 bowl. 1 trumpet, a bowl, a trumpet, a bowl, a trumpet, a bowl. They go by their numbers. The first 4 trumpet and bowls are before the millennial reign, and they only are regarding the destruction of the whore of Babylon. And we'll cover that in a second. More of that in a second part. We're going to go over it here because I need to get through 8. And it's funny, the 8, the numbers mean everything. 7 is completion. That's why in chapter 7, the what was that? We were talking about, people call it tribulation. Yeah, the Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation was completed in chapter 7 with the resurrection of God's people. Now, chapter 8 says, hey, there's a new beginning. 8 means new beginning. Okay, the book's all about numbers. 8 means new beginning. Chapter 9 means wrath. Okay? And then 10, like the law. 11 is a beautiful number. It means a combination of all the other ones. It turns out to be this God, basically God's in control, and what he does is beautiful. That guy's the best sum up I guess I've ever done of number 11. And 12 is like discipleship or something, etc., etc. And there's other ministries that have their adaptations to those numbers. 1 means God. 2 does not mean division. 2 means confirmation. 3 means the Trinity. 4 means a total change of something. 5 is grace. 6 is man. 7 is completion. 8 is new beginning. So just remember that. In chapter 8, we're in a new beginning, and something new is about to happen. Now, in 8 verse 6, now the 7 angels with the 7 shofars prepare to sound them. The first shofar. The first one, now these are the destruction of the whore of Babylon. In the Old Testament, the whore is a nation of Babylon. Babylon encompasses the Middle East. It was the whole world at that time, and that's what it's referring to. So when you hear about 1/3 of the earth being burned up, etc., etc., we're talking about 1/3 of the Middle East today, or in our future. And that 1/3 turns out to be the people of Kasdim, which is now basically Saudi Arabia, and 1/3 of the Middle East, which Saudi Arabia just so happens to make up 1/3 of the Middle East. 1/3 of the Middle East will be annihilated. This is where the whore of Babylon has resided at the point in our future. So hopefully nothing really bad happens, but you'll find out like pitch means oil. The what's in that cup of the whore is oil. That same word for that wine means oil. And they trade, bodies and souls, everything for that oil, including people. And it's horrible. But we'll get that when we get 17 and wherever that's at. But here's their destruction. The first one, there came fire. The first shofar, there came hail and fire mingled with blood, and it was thrown down on the earth. 1/3 of the earth was burned up. 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Now, you have to go to chapter 16. Because the trumpets and bowls, a trumpet is like the cause, and the bowl is the effect. And when the first plague angel blows his trumpet, he then dumps that bowl. There's not 14 angels, because it don't make sense that way anyway. But here it's a cause-effect relationship, and it matches up. Because in 16, I heard a loud voice from the sanctuary say to the 7 angels, "Go and pour out on the earth the 7 bowls of God's fury." So the first, verse 2, 16:2. So the first one went and poured his bowl onto the earth, and disgusting and painful sores appeared on all the people who had the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. Again, these are people that were left behind in a sense, had nothing to do with the movie, but they weren't taken up because they had already they had served Satan, and they had received the mark and worship its image, meaning Babylon. It's a Babylon thing. We'll get to that later on because it's really comprehensive, but simple. It's just basically simple. Those that didn't put their trust in God. So these painful sores and everything. Now you can possibly say that the first what happens, the hail and the fire mingled with blood, is thrown upon the earth, and the earth was burned up. 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. It could be an asteroid strike, but it's more than likely some type of nuclear strike. But even God may not mess with the nuclears. It may be asteroids. But regardless, what happens is when something of that power comes down and hits the earth, and it goes up, it's going up in a mushroom cloud. And after nuclear detonations, that mushroom cloud is rolling up, and it's churning the atmosphere. And that hot air from down here goes up there, and it's moist. It's full of moisture down here. But it shoots up there, and instead of turning into clouds, there's so much of it, it turns into giant blocks of hail. I mean, huge blocks of hail. And it'll come down, There'll be hail and fire mixed with blood coming right back down on top of what just happened. Okay? And when stuff like this happens, people receive swords. And these swords are equivalent to like a nuclear attack. And these painful and disgusting, painful sores appears on all the people, verse 16:2, who had the mark of the beast and worship its image. Notice it doesn't say God's people. It doesn't say innocent people. It doesn't say anything like that. This is judgment time. And whoever they are deserve that judgment. Those poor souls that are brought up back to that area, this is what they get. And then immediately, the second angel, 8 verse 8, second angel sounds his shofar, and what looked like an enormous blazing mountain was hurled into the sea. This enormous blazing mountain is basically now the Whore of Babylon on fire, because a mountain is a great powerful kingdom, and the Whore of Babylon is and has been and will be still running a great and powerful kingdom. It was hurled into the sea, given into basically the nations. A third of the sea turned to blood. Now this is still a Middle East book, so it's a third of the sea, that same place turns to blood. A third of the living creatures in the sea die. This nation, the sea is a nation. A third of the living creatures in this nation die, and a third of the ships were destroyed. So a third of their ships are destroyed in that area too. Now let's go to the second bowl. So in 16:3, the second one poured out his bowl into the sea. Notice the relationship, correlation. Okay, it fits. It makes sense. Okay, not the way it's taught in our churches. This part makes it. It's the sea again. Poured out into the sea, and it became like the blood of a dead person. Again, the blood's mentioned, and every living thing in the sea died. So everything ends up dying, because this is the effect of what happened at the trumpet. Trumpet says a third, but later on, through the sores, through the injuries, etc., everything in that nation will die. The cause is right then. The effects last for a long time. It goes down and it lasts for a long time. Okay. 8 verse 10. I'm sorry, I shouldn't miss anything there. The third angel sounded his shofar, and a great star blazing like a torch fell from the sky unto a third of the rivers and unto the springs of water. The name 11. The name of the star was bitterness or poisonous, and a third of the water became bitter or poison, and many people died from the water that had been turned to poison. Okay. That was the third one. Now the third bowl, 16:4. The third one poured out his bowl into the rivers and springs of water. Does that make sense or what? Okay, sorry. The third one poured out his bowl into the rivers and springs of water, and they turned to blood. Verse 5. Then I heard the angel of the waters say, O HaKadosh, the one who is and was, you are just in these judgments of yours. They poured out the blood of your people and your prophets, so you have made them drink blood. They deserve it. Verse 7, 16:7. Then I heard the altar say, that's Jesus, yes, Adonai, God of heaven's armies, your judgments are true and just. So the angels cry out to God, saying, yes, look what they're doing. They deserve it. And Jesus is like, yeah, they deserve it. They deserve this. This is all the bad people, the really, really bad people. A lot of them on the earth didn't get this, but these are the bad ones. All right. And basically, they were the start of the whole, the Kasdan people in the area back in the day are the ones that destroyed the temple, the first temple, God's first temple. And they were like the forefront of turning against God. Because now, we got people that don't even believe in God. But back then, everybody knew God existed and they feared him. Regardless of whether they knew him or not, they knew there was a God of Israel and they feared him. But now they're like, well, whatever. All right. And the fourth one. 8, verse 12. Chapter 8, verse 12. Revelation 8, verse 12. The fourth angel sounded his shofar, and a third of the sun was struck. Also a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened. The day had a third less light, and the night likewise. What happens during some event, horrific atomic or asteroid event, the whole blackout thing happens. And that's what happens here. And the effect of it is in 16:8. The fourth one poured out his bowl on the sun, and it was permitted to burn people with fire. After such an event, the atmosphere up in the ionosphere is so churned now, it's practically gone. The ozone's gone. And this is what happens. Verse 9, 16 verse 9. There's that wrath again. People, number 9 is wrath. Verse 9 of 16. People were burned by the intense heat, yet they cursed the name of God who had the authority over these plagues, instead of turning from their sins to give him glory. They hate so much hate, and they curse God when all they had to do was just fall on their face. It sounds like instead of turning from their sins to give him glory. And I've said this lots of times. The whole millennial reign kingdom is like a second chance for these people out of hell. It's like a second chance, but no. Here they are being their same idiot selves. If that's me, I'm gonna be facing the dirt, crying and begging them, please stop. Take me, kill me, whatever it takes to get all this done. All right. Now, right after 8 and 9, with the fourth bowl being poured out in chapter 16, it goes right to the fifth one. But we got to stop and make a pause here, because in between this fourth and fifth bowl is the millennial reign. So I'm going to stop because I'm going to try and keep you all on track with the timeline of what's going on. And the reason it's it's stopping, it's from 8 after verse 12, which is 13. Because after that shofar, that fourth shofar, these first 4 plagues of these first 4 angels are done. Their job's done. They're like, we're done. We get to chill out with a millennial reign. While you other guys still got to hold your shofar and your bowl for 1,000 years. But it's kind of funny. But here we go. We're 8:13. Verse 8:13. Then John looked, and he heard a lone eagle give a loud cry. Now, before you found out about Revelation chapter 4, you wouldn't have any idea about who this eagle angel is, this lone eagle is. Well, it's an angel. It's out of the 4th ring of angels around the throne. You got surrounding the throne of God, going outward. There's this ring of lion angels, this giant ring. There's another giant ring of ox angels, another giant ring of human-looking angels, and the 4th ring of eagle angels. And I believe they were in like a rank. The strongest were by the throne, the lion angels. I believe it goes out that way. And again, there was probably 2 more rings, because a third of the angels fell. So there's 2 more types of angels that were out there surrounding God's throne, but they fell. And like I said, I think they were reptilian and something else, maybe big old round saucer-eyed guys that now run around in their cool little craft, the little flying saucers. Who knows? Just a theory. It's not scriptural. I mean, the 1/3, 2/3 is scriptural, but I don't know. All right, let's get 13 done. Then I looked and heard a lone eagle give a loud cry as it flew in mid-heaven. Now, you've got our atmosphere, you got what's above it, which is, they would say, is stratosphere or whatever, or that space, and then outer space, which is somewhere out there is where God took heaven and then came back from. But they flew in mid-heaven, which is right above earth, saying, "Woe, woe, woe to the people living on earth, because of the remaining blast from the three angels who have yet to sound their shofars." Now, they're giving a warning to the people. Let's stay on point. We're on the timeline. This destruction over here in the Middle East area just occurred. People were in shock and awe. That's also the sign from Matthew. Let's see. I should have found it. But that's also the sign from Matthew where Jesus talks about. I believe it's in. Matthew 24:37. I got that wrong early in the video. For the Son of Man's coming will be just as it was in the day of Noah. No, that's not it. No, that's not it. Maybe I was right. I should have found it earlier. But the sign. Oh, here it is. Up here, 27, not 37. Maybe I was right, or something. Matthew 24:27. For when the Son of Man does come, it will be like lightning that flashes out of the east and fills the sky to the western horizon. Wherever there's a dead body, that's where you find the vultures. So there's death and destruction going to occur wherever this flashing light comes from, but it fills the sky all the way to the western horizon. You look at a map of Israel, Jerusalem, Middle East, and you see Israel. Well, to the east of it is Saudi Arabia. So when they're being destroyed, they're going to see all that light. And a feast, this happens on the Feast of Trumpets. And all Jewish feasts occur beginning at sundown. That's when they start. So right at sundown, or maybe just a few minutes, maybe a few hours later, you get this destruction of the whore of Babylon. And then within an hour, within an hour of the resurrection. So I guess there's time before the resurrection. Then, good old darkness comes, and then they drop the 7 plagues, the first 4 plagues on, and destroy Saudi Arabia. And then it will be like lightning that flashes out of the east. So if you're in Israel, say you get resurrected, you're back in Israel, and you didn't get taken up to meet the Lord in the air, and you saw everybody taken up, I'd be like ducking for cover. I'd be like, oh no, because I know what's coming. There's a great earthquake coming, and I'm getting away from the buildings and everything. So I'm not one of them 7,000 or whatever that die. They'll see the lightning, boom, and all that it's going to rock the Middle East, and that lightning will fill the sky all the way to the western horizon. So that's that part. Now go back to Revelation 8. Verse 13, get back to this lone eagle. This lone eagle, big giant lone eagle, and he's cruising. He's got 3 other angels behind him. And this is why. As it flew in mid-heaven, saying, it says, "Woe, woe, woe to the people living on earth, because of the remaining blast from the 3 angels who have yet to sound their shofar." This lone eagle has 3 woes behind him. And these 3 woes come from. We're not going to go through all of it today. We'll catch it. Well, we might jump into it next. We'll stay on the timeline. Revelation 14. In Revelation 14 it says, now I'll go straight to that verse. In verse 6, 14:6. Next I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven with everlasting good news, proclaimed to those living on the earth, to every nation, tribe, language, and people. In a loud voice he said, and it goes, "Fear God, give him glory, for the hour has come." This is right after the destruction of the whore of Babylon. This angel is given command, the 3 woes. Fear God, give him glory, for the hour has come when he will pass judgment. Worship the one who made heaven and earth and the seas and springs of water. Verse 8, and another angel, a second one, he's the second, of those three angels following the first one, followed, saying, she has fallen, Babylon the Great. She made all the nations drink the wine of God's fury caused by her whoring. We talked a little bit about the wine. In verse 9, another angel, a third one, followed them and said in a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives the mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will indeed drink the wine of God's fury poured undiluted into the cup of his rage. These are those last three plagues that's going to be after the millennial reign. So they got a whole 1,000 years to decide about that choice they're going to make. If they ever make that choice, that's it. They're stuck. Okay, this is when the mark of the beast really kicks in. I mean, people can go get a mark right now, go get a tattoo, whatever, and declare they're following the evil one, and all that. And that's these other people that didn't make it, that we just discussed. But now, there's a potential for even more of that. And it's when the 5 months of Satan's given 5 months to really try to turn the people to him. Still in 10. He will be tormented by fire and sulfur before the holy angels and before the Lamb. And smoke from the tormenting goes up forever and ever. They have no rest day or night, those who worship the beast in his image and those who receive the mark of its name. In verse 12, this is when perseverance is needed on the part of God's people, those who observe his commands and exercise Yeshua's faithfulness. And then 13 goes into another vision. But these are the three woes, and should change the title to add those to it because we just went over them. It was that simple. I may do another video, a separate one, so people can key in on it. We'll probably do it when we get to verse 10 verse 14, because now see, before that happens, now there's a pause, because 14 has verses 1 through 5. So there's something happening just before those angels take place, and this way you got to keep it on your timeline. So after the whore's destroyed, then there's these angels, but somewhere right between that is 14, 1 through 5. And so when we get to 14, we'll start with 14 on the next one. We'll jump. I hate to keep jumping. Let's just do it now. This happens, remember I said it's on the feast. There's the Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. 14 verses 1 through 5 is on the Day of Atonement. Okay, it's a couple days later at the Feast of Trumpets. And then after that, we're going to see these angels giving these commands. 14:1. This is on the Day of Atonement, the second feast of God's feast that he told Israel to keep. Then I looked, and there was a lamb standing on Mount Zion. So he's taken us up, the destruction of whore Babylon. Now he's, in the Old Testament, he goes around the nations of Israel destroying a lot of people. But on the day he walks in, this John seeing this vision, the day he's stepping into Jerusalem. Then I looked, and there was a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him were his 144,000, those that are coming with him, who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Nothing's going to touch them. Nothing can touch them. Ever again. Nothing. Verse 2, I heard a sound from heaven like a sound of rushing waters and like the sound of pealing thunder. The sound I heard was also like that of a harpist playing on the harps. They were singing a new song before the throne and before the four living beings and the elders. That's all the angels in heaven. And no one can learn the song except the 144,000 who have been ransomed from the world. Verse 4, these are the ones who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. They have been ransomed from among humanity as firstfruits for God and the Lamb. On their lips no lie was found. They are without defect. So this is Christ coming. That's his point. He comes in to Jerusalem, and then after that, after he said, I am he. In the Old Testament, we'll get to 14. We'll jump to the Old Testament where he walks in with with this robe, blood soaked, and what happened right before that. Well, that's it for this video. I've got 2 books online. Get them before they close the platform down on smashwords.com. The Book of Revelation is So Simple. It's my most recent book. And the other one is Revelations of Grace and Mercy, the truest interpretation of the Book of Revelation. You can download them for free on smashwords.com. And that concludes chapter 8. Y'all have a great day.